Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. So, hello everyone. Welcome to Basics Discussion Circle and Meditation. My name's Travis. I facilitate this group. Yeah. So, I think for tonight, I think we'll do the 5 recollections as tonight's topic of meditation and likely the topic of discussion. Hello, Roberto. If you're here and you'd like to say hi in the chat, I'd love to hear it. If you have anything you'd like to share or any questions you'd like me to address afterwards, you can also leave it there. Hello, Sherry. So I think tonight we'll do the 5 recollections as the meditation. So the 5 recollections are a collection of themes that the Buddha suggested that we contemplate often, that we recollect upon them often. So I am subject to aging. Aging is a natural part of life. I am subject to illness. Illness is natural. I am subject to death. Death is natural. I will grow different, separate from all that is dear and appealing to me. And I'm the owner of my actions. So those are the 5 recollections. And while they might sound a bit depressing or a bit sad, there's really nothing pessimistic about them because there's nothing that's untrue about them. Aging, illness, and death and separation are things that are a natural part of life. By virtue of being born, all of these kinds of things will follow. So it's less about getting down on ourselves and more about becoming at ease with these kind of facts of life. If when hearing those, there's any kind of resistance of like, oh, I don't want to think about that, I don't want to do that, it's a good sign that it might be a good idea to do some of that because we have a resistance to it. And it would be more beneficial to become at ease with it now than when we're confronted with it. So we're not blindsided by it someday. We've made our peace with the nature of reality, the nature of living. So that's the intention of these recollections, right? And I'll talk more about them later in more detail. As I'm sure most of you know, some of you may not know, Thich Nhat Hanh, a great Zen master, passed away this last week. So we're going to be doing the 5 recollections, or as he liked to call them, the 5 remembrances tonight. So, yeah. With that, I think we'll get started. Oh, and if at any point any of the recollections start to feel overwhelming or you start to feel like you're panicking or anything like that, that's normal. That can happen for people. Just return to the breath. Just find some ease, some comfort in the breath. With this practice, we don't, especially within the meditation itself, we don't want to push ourselves too hard, right? The image that's always given is when the Buddha is talking about how this practice is like learning to play a lute. It's a string instrument. You can think of it like a guitar. If the string is tuned too tight, it will snap. If it's tuned too loose, no sound will play. It has to be this balanced tune for it to create music. And in the same way, our practice has to be balanced, not too slack, not too rigorous, but right in the middle. And that middling effort is different depending on the occasion, right? So with that, we'll get started. Closing the eyes and taking 3 deep breaths slowly. Noticing if deep breathing feels good. If it does, you can keep on breathing in this way. If it doesn't, you can switch things up. Maybe even deeper still or more shallow, heavier or lighter. In long, out short. In short, out long. Just playing around for a few minutes here, noticing what feels best for the body in this moment. You can even pose the question in the mind, what kind of breathing would feel the most centering or the most energizing? Then just watch how the breath responds. And as you settle into whatever rhythm of breathing is best in the moment, you can notice if you're holding any tension in your forehead, around the eyes, the jaw. See if you can consciously relax this tension all the way through the in breath and keep it relaxed all the way through the out breath. Continuing down to the neck and shoulders, noticing if you're holding tension there. Allow the shoulders to drop all the way through the in breath and to stay relaxed all the way through the out breath. And with the forehead and the shoulders relaxed, you can gently guide our awareness down into the center of the chest. Noticing if there's any sense of tension or tightness around the heart. Seeing if we can breathe through that tension, dissolving it away. If you want, you can even imagine the breath coming in right at the front of the chest, so you don't have to push or pull it from anywhere else. Breathing in, it flows into the heart, soothing the heart. Breathing out, it expands out, opening the chest. letting our awareness shift slightly, allowing the breath to fade into the background a bit and guiding our awareness more towards the sensation of the chest, the sensation of the heart space. And from the heart as our home base, we can begin working with the recollections, the remembrances. And the way that we can do this is we'll go one at a time and just kind of internally state the phrase. And then notice if there's any tension that builds up, any resistance that builds up to that phrase. And then we can focus on relaxing that tension and then restate the phrase. That's really all there is to this. I am subject to aging. Aging is unavoidable. Whatever degree of youth I have in this moment will not last forever. I'll grow older and more wrinkled and more gray. This is a natural part of life. Noticing any tension, whether it's in the chest or the shoulders or the forehead. And relaxing it. I am subject to aging. Aging is unavoidable. Again, relaxing any tension and then returning to the phrase. Relaxing tension one last time, the forehead, the shoulders, the chest. Centering ourselves back in the chest, we can move on to the next remembrance. I am subject to illness. Illness is unavoidable. Whatever degree of health I have in this moment, it will not last forever. Eventually, I will grow ill. My strength will leave me. This is a natural part of life. Again, noticing how these phrases feel in the chest. Noticing if they give rise to any tension. And consciously relaxing the tension, then returning to the phrase. I am subject to illness. Illness is unavoidable. And then letting this recollection, this remembrance go. Relaxing the forehead and the shoulders and the chest. Centering our awareness in the heart. We can begin working with the next phrase. I am subject to death. Death is a natural part of life. noticing any physical resistance and relaxing it. This body, this form will not last forever. Eventually it will cease. I am subject to death. Death is unavoidable. Softening into these truths, the forehead, the shoulders. If you want, you may even find it helpful to gently place your hand over your heart, softening the chest. And moving on to the next recollection. I will grow different, separate from all that is dear and appealing to me. And this has two meanings here. One is that many of the things that we hold dear will fall away. Simply, it's the nature of life. But also that we will grow different from many of the things that we consider important. They will lose their value to us. We will change. Again, softening, physically softening into this recollection. I will grow different from many of the things that I hold dear. And with the body relaxed, allowing yourself to grow separate from that recollection, and move on to the final recollection. I am the owner of my actions, the heir to my actions. I live dependent on my own actions. Knowing that my actions inform my reality, I take accountability for them. Noticing any tension and softening into it. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths slowly. Slowly opening the eyes and stretching, never in a rush to leave the meditation. So, as always, after the meditation, if anyone would like to share how that experience of meditation was for them, whether you found it easy or difficult, uh, enjoyable or not, or whatever you're sitting with in this moment, if you'd like to share it. Hello, Linda. Hello, Darcy. Hello, Graham. So, one thing I guess I was a bit eager to get into the meditation aspect tonight. One thing that I didn't really explain before we started the meditation was that fourth recollection. I will grow different from, I will grow separate, different from all that is dear and appealing to me. And how it has kind of those two meanings. And I mentioned it a bit within the meditation. But it's on one hand referencing that many things and many people, whether it's by their own will or just by the hands of time, many things fall away from us. Many things fall out of our lives. And at the same time, many things in our lives we grow different from. We distance ourselves from. Many things that even as short as a year ago or a month ago, many things that we thought this was so important, this was so necessary, this is like the crux of my entire life balance. If this wasn't here, then I couldn't do anything else. Many of those things end up being completely irrelevant to us in as short as a year's time. We could look back and think, wow, that was weird that I was that obsessed with that particular thing or that particular person or that particular outcome. So we grow different from a lot of the things that right now seem so dear and so appealing and so important to us. And that recollection for me is one of the most beneficial within these recollections, because I have a tendency to take things too seriously um, and put too much emphasis or too much importance on particular things being met, particular needs being met, particular outcomes happening. So that constant reminder of many of these things that I'm so obsessed with in this moment, a year from now, I'll look back on and barely have any connection to. And that's actually really freeing. And knowing that many of these things are fleeting, you can enjoy them that much more while they're here as well. You can appreciate them that much more while they're here. Yeah. So I know I'd like to thank all of you who stuck around. I know with this type of meditation, with the recollections, the remembrances, it's not the most popular style of meditation. Even when people meet here in person, sometimes there's usually like one person who leaves. But I think it's important to cover them, even if they're not globally enjoyable, because they're really beneficial. They have real, they have real merit to them, real benefit to them. And they're a very important tool in our toolbox as a meditator. So, and if at any point you have any questions on anything that I'm saying or anything like that, you can feel free to leave it in the comments and I'll get back to it. So the thing I wanted to kind of talk about tonight is, as I mentioned in the beginning, the reason we did the recollection tonight was because of the passing of Thich Nhat Hanh. And one thing that my teacher, Thanissaro Bhikkhu, talks about when there's one talk I listened to his, and it was a talk he gave shortly after a memorial service. And years ago. And he said, when someone passes away, there's, as a meditator, we have a duty to think about two people first. And one is to think about the person who passed away, recollect on the good that they've done in life, reflect on any lessons that could be learned from their life, from the way that they lived, and dedicate merit to them, dedicate any good that we do to them on their time of rebirth within a Buddhist context. Or you can think of it as just really expressing your gratitude for that person and what they've meant in your life. And then the other person that we should think about is ourselves. Because when this person passes away, we think about these recollections that I've mentioned, that aging, illness, death, separation, they're natural parts of life, and they're unavoidable. They're unavoidable to the person who passed away, and they're unavoidable to us. So the second person we think about is ourselves. We reflect that just as they were, I too am subject to aging, illness, and death. And upon that recollection, it's not intended to like beat ourselves up or get anxious or worry. It's intended to inspire, because we can recollect on the good that this person did in this person who's passed has done in their life. And then we can reflect back on ourselves, wanting to make the best use of the time, whatever time we have left. Because we don't know. We really don't know. The breath that we're taking in this moment could be our very last breath. We don't know. So this recollection of these 5 recollections, the way that it starts with aging, illness, death, and separation, and then it ends with accountability. It ends with reflecting on our actions and realizing that our actions shape our reality. What we think, what we say, and what we do, how we interact and travel through the world, how we navigate our life, impacts the direction of our life. So this kind of motivating factor of, I don't know how much time I have left. I want to make the best use of the time that I have left. And when we see things, one of my favorite examples within these recollections is that I am subject to aging, or I'm subject to illness. Illness is unavoidable. Is when we get sick, I don't know about you, but this always happens to me, right? When I get sick, then I have all of this motivation because I'm too sick to do anything. I have all of this motivation of, oh, as soon as I'm better, I want to go do this and that, and I want to get that thing I've been putting off done, and blah, blah, blah. And we're so motivated. And then once we're finally better, we're lucky if it lasts, if that motivation lasts for the next day. Um, and then once we get sick again, that same motivation comes up, right? So these recollections are intended to realize, as I mentioned in the meditation, whatever level of health I have, whatever level of wellness that I have in this moment will not last forever. In other words, let me make the best use of whatever level of health I have. Maybe I'm not in peak physical condition, but I have a certain level of health. I'm capable of doing a certain level of things. So using that as a motivating factor in this path. And it's the same with the recollection on aging, whatever level of youth I have, whether it's being youthful at 10 years old or youthful at 70 years, youthful at 70 years old. Whatever level of youthfulness, whatever level of energy I have, let me make the most use of it, the best use of it. Because in the same way that when we grow sick, we think about all the things that we can do when we're better, right? The recollection that I think of is when I'm at death's doorstep, is that going to be a similar effect to when, as soon as we get sick, we think about all the things that we could have done when we were healthy, or all the things that we want to do once we get better, right? When death comes, there's not once this death thing's over, unless, you're talking multiple lifetimes. Once this death thing's over, I want to do this, this, and this. It's, for the most part, within this lifetime, within this body, final. So am I going to have that same urge, that same recollection of, oh, I wish, instead of once I get better, it's going to be, oh, I wish I did this, this, and this. Am I making the best use of whatever time I have left? So that's how these recollections are useful. They're motivating, they're inspiring. Oftentimes when we're new to this practice, they can seem kind of demotivating, demoralizing, and depressing, but they're actually really inspiring because they're recognizing the fleetingness of life and putting our best foot forward. And chances are, when we're on our deathbed, the things that we'll look back on and be glad that we did were things that we did for the benefit of others. The way that we were kind to others, the way that we helped other people, the way that we were there for other people, the way that we lived as an example for other people. Those are the kind of things that are going to be most likely the most important to us when we're going through our transition. So that's all I had to share for tonight. So Roberto shared, this meditation always helps me consider how transient things are. It is difficult, but one of my favorite meditations. I'm glad. I'm both glad that it's difficult, because if it wasn't, it wouldn't be as effective, right? If it's difficult, it means there's a need for it, right? And I'm also glad that it's one of your favorites. It's very useful. And then Sherry shared, I totally relate to finding relief in the I will grow different one, because I definitely need to obsess less, but a couple of the others are difficult for me. I think of the recollections, within my experience, the two easiest ones to work with are the I will grow different, because it actually is a relief. There's a relief knowing that all these things I'm obsessing about and stressing about, many of which I have no control over. I have control over the stressing and obsessing of them to a degree, but I don't have control over what kind of outcome they reach, right? So it can be quite relieving. And then the other one that I think is easier to deal with, I guess, depending on how we've lived our life up to the point that we're doing the recollection, is that I'm the owner of my actions. I'm the heir to my actions, and I live dependent upon my own actions. that sort of accountability, depending on how we've lived our life up to this point, can either be a really motivating or maybe a bit frightening. But what we can focus on, if that recollection is a bit frightening, oh, I'm going to fall heir to all these things that I've done. We can create, and this is a recollection on karma, we can create new karma. Karma just means action. We can perform new actions. We can change the way that we think about things. We can change the way that we speak and interact with others and the way that we self-talk. And we can improve that trajectory if that recollection's a bit anxiety-inducing. As for the other recollections, they can either be, really challenging or really freeing. And the more frequently that these recollections are recollected, they're called recollections because they're meant to be recollected. The more frequently that that's done, the more they start to gear away from being difficult and more towards freeing. Because when we've truly accepted these recollections, there's not too much that's super difficult about them. And I'm nowhere near the point where I'm totally at peace with all of them or anything like that. Don't get that wrong. But there is an element of freedom kind of swirled into them. And that little taste of freedom within them comes out bit by bit. It shows itself every once in a while. I personally, I always just had like an irrational fear of death. I was always freaked out about it. And these recollections really helped cut through that. Now I don't have an irrational fear. And part of that was realizing that it was an irrational fear because it's something that is unavoidable. Things that are unavoidable to me now, it makes no sense to fear them or worry about them when no amount of power, energy, willpower, or thought will prevent them from happening. Which can either be a terrifying statement or really freeing. Yeah. So I think with that, we have time for like one or two questions if anyone wants to ask anything. And if not, we can just close up. Okay. So with that, we'll close with a dedication of merit to Thich Nhat Hanh. If comfortable, please join palms. May any merit gained from today's meditation and discussion be dedicated to Thich Nhat Hanh in his time of transition, and to all beings in all directions without limit or end. May all beings be healthy, safe, joyful, and at ease. May we all be healthy, safe, joyful, and at ease. Metta karuna mudita upekha sahanga teya cetasa Chaturisa bharatva viharati Samba buddharo bhavena Samba dhammaro bhavena Samba sangharo bhavena Sote hantu nirantaram. Thanks for coming, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your night. I'll see y'all next week.